The point of chapter 2, verses 17 to 24, we recall, was that Israel, though claiming to be better off before God than the rest of the world, not least because of possessing the law, was in fact reduced to the same state as the rest of the world. Chapter 1, verse 18 to chapter 2, verse 16, charged before God with sin. Now we begin to see the second point that Paul is making, which is subtle, but to the audience he has in mind, powerful. He has described the problem of Israel under the law so that it looks exactly like the problem which every puzzled pagan moralist from at least Aristotle onwards had observed. There was a long tradition in Greek and Roman philosophy and poetry in which people complained, scratching their heads over it, that they could figure out what was the right thing to do, but for some reason or other they couldn't manage to do it. Conversely, they could see with their mind that a certain course of action was wrong, and yet they went ahead and did it anyway. Paul had spent years in the debating halls of the ancient pagan world. He had listened on the street as people quoted snatches of poetry and popular philosophy. Now, as one of his most devastating and clever pieces of writing, so clever that it runs right by a lot of readers to this day, he offers an analysis of Israel's plight under the law which ends up as saying, "So this is the height to which God's chosen people attain through their possession of the law, the same height as the puzzled pagan moralist." If anything could demonstrate the problem faced by Israel, this would be it, that however much God's people struggled to obey God's law, they ended up like the rest of the world in a state of moral incapability. Paul will himself write a conclusion to this argument in the final section of the chapter, but for the moment we should notice where he has got to. He has exonerated the law from blame in the catastrophe that has overtaken Israel. He has even exonerated the eye. There was nothing wrong with being Israel, nothing wrong with wanting to keep God's law. Think of Psalms 19 and 119, with their almost mystical longing and love for the law. The real problem was sin. Paul has already indicated, in a strange little passage in verse 13, what is going to happen to sin. What was responsible for bringing death to me, he says, was sin, in order that it might appear as sin, and in order that sin might become very sinful indeed. This repeated "in order that" is itself a bit of a puzzle. Why would God, who is often implicated in Paul's "in order that" clauses, want sin to grow to full height? Add to the mix the similar phrase in chapter 5, verse 20. The law came in alongside in order that the trespass might abound. And for good measure, Galatians chapter 3, verse 22, Scripture, i.e. the law, has shut up everything under sin. What was God up to? Giving the law not simply knowing that it would give sin the chance to grow to its full height, but actually in order that it might do so. We will discover the answer in chapter 8, verse 3, but we must anticipate that moment if we are to see the deepest reason, and one of abiding and indeed shocking relevance for every generation of Christian believers, why Paul has written this chapter the way he has. God wanted sin to be brought to its full height in order that he might then deal with it, condemn it, punish it once and for all. But where was sin to grow to full height? Paradoxically, in Israel, the very people God had called to be the light of the world. Why? In order that in the person of Israel's representative, the Messiah, sin might be drawn on to one spot and condemned once and for all. What looks at first sight like a tortured and rambling account of personal moral incapacity prepares the way for a statement of the achievement of the cross, which is as powerful as anything Paul ever wrote.
No, what? No way.